On April 6, 2008, a group of Green Berets, also known as U.S. Army Special Forces, fought alongside Afghan commandos in the Shok Valley. Many people call this event a miracle, but why? What exactly happened on that remarkable day? The Shok Valley is located in Afghanistan in the eastern part of the country, specifically in the Nuristan Province. The Shok Valley is characterized by rugged terrain, including steep mountains and narrow valleys, making it a challenging environment for military operations. Because of its mountains and narrow valleys, it's very difficult for anyone to enter this territory. Even during the nearly 10-year Soviet occupation of the country, they never ventured into it. Similarly, for the first 7 years of Operation Enduring Freedom, no coalition troops dared to enter. However, this area gained significant attention when 12 U.S. Special Forces Green Berets landed in the Shok Valley by CH-47 Chinook helicopters to fight with Afghan commandos. This war is known as Battle of Shok Valley and as well as Operation Commando Wrath. This was a joint U.S.-Afghan raid designed to capture Gulbuddin Hekmatyar, the leader of Hezb-e-Islami Gulbuddin, also called HIG, in the Shok Valley of Nuristan Province of Afghanistan on April 6, 2008. This battle is considered to be one of the most harrowing battles ever waged by American operators during the war in Afghanistan. It was discovered that HIG had been gathering weapons and ammo for a moment like this since the Soviet-Afghan War. Usually, Green Berets preferred to work at night, but this mission started at dawn. The jagged terrain and sheer cliffs were too steep for the Chinooks, so ODA 336 and their Afghan National Army commandos jumped into a fast-moving, waist-deep river running through the target. The helicopters could not land, said Lieutenant Colonel Kyle Walton, the ODA commander. We had to jump, sometimes into the river, sometimes into jagged rocks about 10 to 12 feet off the back end of the helicopter, and that was at the beginning of the mission. One by one, the Green Berets jumped into a cold stream, followed by a few Afghan commandos. As they looked around, they saw lots of enemy activity on the remote mountainside. The original plan was to go down the mountain, but they realized they were dropped off around 3,000 feet below a village fortified with fighting positions, including mud compounds with holes for snipers. The village buildings were stacked on top of each other on a steep slope high above, so the Green Berets began their climb. But the enemy insurgents waited until the lead group was close to the compound before attacking. A heavy weapons section composed of Afghan commandos moved alongside Williams. It became clear early on that the enemy force was much stronger than anticipated. Suddenly, the commandos found themselves surrounded. Bullets flew from every direction, hitting with deadly accuracy. The interpreter standing next to Walton was killed instantly, and Sergeant Dylan Baer was hit in the hip. As the lead force, including Staff Sergeant David Sanders, reached the village, they faced heavy fire. Walton, hearing reports of casualties, called for close air support. Sanders, despite the danger, urged him to bring it on. Bombs rained down, but the insurgents remained entrenched. Despite 70 airstrikes, the attackers persisted with RPGs, small arms, and machine guns. 200 armed insurgents closed in, but the commandos fought back fiercely, even amidst casualties. One soldier's leg was nearly severed, but he quickly improvised, using his boot to tie it to his thigh to prevent further injury. Everybody else was hit by enemy fire or actually wounded by enemy fire, Walton recalled. In short order, we found ourselves bounding back to an approximately 100-foot cliff, where we were forced to fight for the next 7 hours for survival and levy close air support, almost directly on top of our positions, Walton added. With all the injured soldiers, there was a danger that only one medic could be overwhelmed and might run out of supplies. As Staff Sergeant Ronald G. Schurer II, the Green Beret medic scanned the area. He knew it would be difficult to move the wounded to a spot where they could be rescued. During their training, medics are taught to be on autopilot with trauma victims. You had to stay detached, and above all, stay focused because you had to divide the wounded, his friends, into two groups: those who were going to live with their injuries and those who were going to die without help. And Schurer only had time to focus on those whose wounds were life-threatening. Kneeling by Baer, he noticed a rock wall protected them, but the rest of the area was wide open. He was trying to stay close to the wall, but he could still feel dirt kicking up in his face from rounds hitting close by and the shockwaves of exploding RPGs. Schurer began examining Baer and assessed that he had been hit twice. The injury to his arm wasn't serious. It was a glancing wound and trickled blood. so he turned his attention to Bear's pelvis. It was bleeding profusely. Shur began methodically thinking about all the possible scenarios with the wound. Ideally, a human has 5.5 to 6 liters of blood. The pelvic area is vascular. You would expect that a person was going to lose 1 or 1.5 liters right there. Doing the math in his head, Shur surmised that Bear was already in borderline shock. He wasn't at the point of total shock, but he was headed in that direction, and that would be potentially deadly. Shur knew Bear needed serious attention. He wanted to examine Bear's body without moving him too much. He rolled him gently and determined that the downside wound was about the size of a quarter. It wasn't bleeding much, but the interior wound, the entry point of the bullet, was different. While it was smaller in diameter, the size of a pinky, it was oozing blood. That was the problem spot. "My leg doesn't feel straight," Bear told him. Shur answered, "Look, man, you're going to be okay. Let me take care of this wound first." Shur removed gauze from his kit and began packing it into the topside wound. Then he turned to Michael Carter, a combat cameraman who had been providing first aid. Shur said, "Just keep pressure on this as hard as you can." Carter nodded and took over, while Shur grabbed a morphine syringe and injected Bear to help ease the pain. Shur was worried. They had to get Bear off the mountain or he would die. Shur turned to Bear. "You're going to be fine. It's no big deal." But then he lifted his head and screamed at Captain Kyle Walton, who was leading the mission. "We need to get him out of here now." Bear reached up and grabbed Shur's arm and said, "So you're telling him I'm going to die, and you're telling me I'm okay?" Shur was momentarily caught off guard. Bear was correct. He was in danger of dying, but Shur had to stay upbeat with his diagnosis. He couldn't tell Bear the truth, or he might give up. "You're fine," Shur said. But inside, he knew it would take a miracle to keep him alive. Ford knew they would eventually achieve fire superiority, but they couldn't overcome the fatal flaw of the whole mission. HIG fighters had the key terrain above them. The operation had quickly turned into a nightmare scenario, and there was no fast way off the mountain to a medevac bird. There were few options. They could fight uphill, something no one wants to do, or pull back, get the wounded to safety and regroup. "Everybody stay where you're at," Ford yelled at the Afghan commandos nearby. "Lay down a base of fire." Between orders, Ford leaned over the edge and fired a few shots at a window or clump of trees in the distance. Overhead, more and more Apaches and fighters were delivering bomb and rocket strikes. Ford's plan was to let the airstrikes level the village so that they could move the wounded to safety. And for the moment, at least, the strikes seemed to be working. Over the radio, he heard the warning that a 2,000-pound bomb was on the way. The target was the large multi-story building on a ridgeline across the wadi. Inside, HIG fighters could zero in on the ledge where his teammates were trapped. While the building was across the wadi, the straight line distance to the ledge was only 300 meters. "1 minute out," Ford said, keying the radio to warn Sergeant Seth Howard at the bottom of the wadi. "Incoming. Get down. Everybody get down." From the corner of his eye, he saw Shur throw his body over Bear to shield him from the blast. From his previous deployments, Ford knew the kind of damage a 2,000-pound bomb could inflict on enemy positions. Hunkered down against the base of the rock wall, he buried his head in the crook of his arm. The blast pushed forward against the wall, followed by a shock wave that hit him deep in the chest. The impact of the explosion spewed a cloud of debris and dust that swirled in the valley. It blocked out the sun and made it impossible for Ford and the others to even see a few inches in front of their faces. Baseball-sized rocks and pebbles flew in their direction. As the dust slowly dissipated, an eerie silence fell over the valley. But then, the shooting erupted again. "We're going to move a casualty every time a bomb is dropped," Ford told Walton. Then he turned to Shur. "Ron, get those guys packaged up and ready to move." They had to get off the ledge, or the wounded were going to die, and likely so would the rest of the team. Ford quickly huddled with 2 of his teammates. "You need to grab 5 or 6 commandos apiece and set up on those ledges," he told them. The idea was to establish security on the ledges leading down the mountain to the wadi. Then, they could carry the wounded while the commandos provided cover fire. Suddenly, an insurgent came rushing toward them. Dressed in a gray top and a military-style hat, the fighter hadn't seen the Americans and seemed to be focused on a team in the wadi. Someone shouted a warning. Ford heard it and, in a smooth motion, wheeled around and snapped off a shot. The burst knifed into the fighter's chest, and he crumbled to the ground, his AK-47 rifle crashing into the dust before him. Ford figured he likely hit the fighter in the spine because 5.56 rounds doesn't have that kind of stopping power. Everybody was stunned. With the fighter lying in a heap, Ford scanned the hill waiting for another fighter. Anyone coming down now was going to get shot. Ford knew they had to move or get overrun. The fighters were starting to probe for an attack. Even for Ford, a veteran of many battles, the level of fighting was overwhelming. It was time to get off the ledge. During the evacuation, the helicopter landed in the middle of a stream, making the commandos rush through the icy water with the casualties. With everyone safely back on board, they headed back to base. Miraculously, none of the Green Berets were killed during the mission. Later, in an interview, Walton expressed that their aim is to avoid fights and enjoy moments of relaxation, like drinking chai. However, they found themselves in a big fight where some of them were injured while trying to save each other. That's what they do, Walton explained. Along with 9 other Green Berets, Walton was awarded the Silver Star for valor. Additionally, the team's medic, Ronald Scherer, and Weapons Sergeant Matthew Williams received the Medal of Honor for their bravery during the battle. It's astonishing that 2 different Medals of Honor were awarded for this single operation. As mentioned earlier, by the end of the over 7-hour-long battle, the 12 Green Berets had eliminated more than 150 enemy insurgents without losing a single American. So this is it, my folks. I hope you enjoyed watching today's video. Let us know what your thoughts are about this miracle story in the comments. If you love war stories like these, make sure to subscribe to our channel and leave this video a like if you enjoyed it. Till then, take care of yourself. See you in our next video.